India, a land of immense spiritual depth, has witnessed the rise of countless sages and philosophers. Among them, Adi Shankaracharya stands tall as a beacon of wisdom, his teachings illuminating the path to self-realization for over a millennium. Born in a humble village in Kerala, Shankaracharya's life was an extraordinary testament to the power of human intellect and spiritual seeking. His contributions to Hindu philosophy, particularly his revival of Advaita Vedanta, have left an indelible mark on the spiritual landscape of India and beyond. Shankaracharya appeared at a time when the true essence of the Vedas, the sacred scriptures of Hinduism, had become obscured by conflicting interpretations and rituals. He recognized the inherent unity underlying the apparent diversity of Hindu traditions and sought to harmonize them under the umbrella of Advaita Vedanta. This non-dualistic philosophy, rooted in the Upanishads, proclaims the oneness of the individual soul, Atman, with the ultimate reality, Brahman. Shankaracharya's genius lay not only in his profound understanding of the scriptures, but also in his ability to make complex philosophical concepts accessible to the common man. Through his lucid commentaries, passionate discourses, and soul-stirring hymns, he breathed new life into the ancient wisdom of the Vedas, making it relevant for his time and for generations to come. His impact on Hinduism was transformative. He established monasteries, mathas, in the four corners of India, ensuring the preservation and propagation of Advaita Vedanta. His philosophical debates with scholars of other schools of thought helped refine and strengthen the foundations of Advaita Vedanta. Even today, centuries after his time, Adi Shankaracharya's legacy continues to inspire seekers of truth around the world, guiding them towards the realization of their own inherent divinity. At the heart of Adi Shankaracharya's teachings lies Advaita Vedanta, a profound philosophy that unravels the nature of reality and the self. Advaita, meaning non-dual, asserts the oneness of existence, declaring that there is only one ultimate reality. Brahman, and everything else is a manifestation of this singular truth. Brahman in Advaita Vedanta is not a god with attributes or a being that exists outside of us. It is the very ground of existence, the pure consciousness that pervades everything. It is unborn, unchanging, eternal, and beyond all names and forms. The world we perceive with our senses, according to Advaita, is not separate from Brahman, but rather an appearance of it, much like how a wave is an appearance of the ocean. Similarly, our true self, the Atman, is not different from Brahman. We are not individual bodies or minds, but rather that pure consciousness, that infinite awareness experiencing itself in myriad forms. The illusion of separation, the belief that we are separate individuals bound by our limited identities, is what Advaita Vedanta terms as Maya. Maya, often translated as illusion, is not to be understood as implying that the world is unreal or a figment of our imagination. It simply means that the reality we perceive is not the ultimate reality. Just as the illusion of a snake on a rope is dispelled by the knowledge of the rope, the illusion of separation from Brahman is dispelled by the knowledge of the Atman. Adi Shankaracharya emerged during a period of intellectual and spiritual ferment in India. Buddhism, which had gained significant ground, challenged the traditional authority of the Vedas. Other schools of thought within Hinduism offered diverse interpretations of the scriptures, sometimes leading to confusion and discord. Shankaracharya's genius was in recognizing that beneath the surface of these seemingly disparate philosophies lay a common thread, a unifying principle that could harmonize the diverse strands of Hindu thought. He delved deep into the Upanishads, the philosophical core of the Vedas, and found in them the bedrock of Advaita Vedanta. However, Shankaracharya did not merely revive an ancient philosophy. He breathed new life into it, making it relevant for his time. He engaged in rigorous debates with scholars from various schools of thought, challenging their views and refining his own understanding of Advaita Vedanta. His commentaries on the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, a treatise on Vedanta, and the Bhagavad Gita, a revered Hindu scripture, are considered masterpieces of philosophical exposition. In these commentaries, he meticulously unpacked the subtle nuances of Advaita Vedanta, making its profound wisdom accessible to a wider audience. Through his writings and discourses, Shankaracharya effectively countered the influence of Buddhism and re-established the supremacy of the Vedas as the ultimate authority on matters of spirituality. His efforts revitalized Hinduism, setting the stage for a new era of spiritual inquiry and self-discovery. Prior to Adi Shankaracharya, Hinduism was a tapestry of diverse traditions, each with its own set of beliefs, practices, and deities. While this diversity was a testament to the richness and inclusivity of Hinduism, it also led to fragmentation and, at times, conflict. Shankaracharya recognized the need to unify the different strands of Hinduism under a common philosophical framework. He achieved this not through imposing a rigid dogma, but by highlighting the underlying unity that permeated all Hindu traditions. He argued that the various deities worshipped by Hindus were not competing entities, but rather different manifestations of the one Brahman. He emphasized that the different paths of yoga outlined in the scriptures were not mutually exclusive, but rather complementary approaches to realizing the same ultimate truth. To solidify this unity and ensure the preservation and propagation of Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya established 4 mathas, monasteries, in the 4 corners of India: Sringeri in the south, Dwarka in the west, Puri in the east, and Jyotirmath in the north. Each matha was entrusted with the responsibility of preserving a specific Veda and propagating Advaita Vedanta in its respective region. The establishment of these mathas was a strategic masterstroke. It not only created centers of learning and spiritual practice, but also served as a unifying force across the geographically and culturally diverse Indian subcontinent. The mathas became beacons of Advaita Vedanta, attracting scholars and seekers from far and wide, fostering a sense of unity and shared identity among followers of Hinduism. Section 5. Words that echo through time. Adi Shankaracharya was not just a philosopher, he was a prolific writer and poet. His literary works, imbued with his profound wisdom and expressed in eloquent Sanskrit, played a pivotal role in disseminating Advaita Vedanta and shaping the intellectual and spiritual landscape of India. His most significant contributions are his commentaries, or bhashyas, on the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, and the Bhagavad Gita. These texts, considered the foundational scriptures of Vedanta, were open to multiple interpretations. Shankaracharya's commentaries provided a clear and comprehensive exposition of Advaita Vedanta, establishing it as a dominant school of thought within Hinduism. Beyond commentaries, Shankaracharya composed numerous original hymns and poems, known as stotras, which are renowned for their devotional fervor and philosophical depth. These hymns, often addressed to different deities, transcended the limitations of sectarian worship, emphasizing the underlying unity of all forms of divinity. His masterpiece, the Viveka Chudamani, or Crest Jewel of Discrimination, is a philosophical poem that elucidates the path to self-realization through the discrimination between the real, Brahman, and the unreal, Maya. Written in the form of a dialogue between a teacher and a disciple, it serves as a practical guide for spiritual seekers, outlining the steps to attain liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Shankaracharya's writings, characterized by their clarity, logic, and depth of insight, continue to be studied and revered by scholars and spiritual aspirants alike. They serve as timeless testaments to the brilliance of his intellect and the transformative power of his teachings. Section 6. The nature of reality, Brahman, Atman, Maya. At the core of Advaita Vedanta lies a profound exploration of the nature of reality, the self, and the illusion that binds us to suffering. Central to this exploration are the concepts of Brahman, Atman, and Maya. Brahman is the ultimate reality in Advaita Vedanta. It is not a god with attributes or a being that exists outside of us. Instead, it is the very ground of existence, the pure consciousness that pervades everything. It is unborn, unchanging, eternal, and beyond all names and forms. The Upanishads, the ancient scriptures that form the basis of Advaita Vedanta, describe Brahman as neti, meaning not this, not this. This negates any attempt to define Brahman in terms of qualities or attributes, for it is beyond all limitations. Atman, often translated as the self or soul, is not different from Brahman in Advaita Vedanta. We are not individual bodies or minds, but rather that pure consciousness, that infinite awareness, experiencing itself in myriad forms. The Chandogya Upanishad famously declares Tat Tivam Asi, meaning thou art that. This asserts the fundamental identity of the individual self with the universal self, the Atman with Brahman. Maya, often translated as illusion, is the veil that obscures the true nature of reality. It is the force that creates the appearance of duality, of separation between the self and Brahman, between subject and object, between the individual and the universe. Maya is not to be understood as implying that the world is unreal or a figment of our imagination. It simply means that the reality we perceive is not the ultimate reality. Section 7. The Path to Liberation, Avidya and Moksha. The human condition, according to Advaita Vedanta, is characterized by suffering, a suffering that stems from our misidentification with the limited self, the ego. We become entangled in the web of desires, attachments, and aversions, caught in the endless cycle of birth and death. This fundamental ignorance of our true nature, our misidentification with the body and mind, is termed as avidya. Avidya is the root cause of all suffering. It is the veil of ignorance that prevents us from perceiving the reality of Brahman and our own inherent divinity. As long as we remain identified with our limited selves, we continue to experience the world through the lens of duality, subject to the pains and pleasures, the highs and lows of life. Moksha, liberation from suffering, is the ultimate goal of human life, according to Advaita Vedanta. It's not something to be attained after death, but a state of being that can be realized here and now. Moksha is the realization of our true nature as Brahman, the dissolution of the ego, the shattering of the illusion of separation. The path to moksha, as outlined by Advaita Vedanta, involves a twofold approach: Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, and Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action. Jnana Yoga emphasizes the importance of self-inquiry, contemplation and meditation to gain direct experience of the self. Karma Yoga, on the other hand, focuses on performing actions without attachment to their fruits, dedicating them to a higher purpose as a way to purify the mind and cultivate detachment. Section 8. A brief biography of Adi Shankaracharya. Born in Kaladi, Kerala, around the 8th century CE, Adi Shankaracharya's life was an extraordinary testament to human potential. Even as a child, he displayed exceptional intellect and spiritual precocity. Legend has it that he mastered the Vedas by the age of 8 and renounced the world to embrace the life of a wandering ascetic soon after. Guided by an inner calling, Shankaracharya traveled extensively throughout India, engaging in philosophical debates, disseminating his teachings, and establishing monasteries to preserve and propagate Advaita Vedanta. His encounters with scholars from diverse schools of thought, his deep immersion in the scriptures, and his profound meditative experiences shaped his understanding of Advaita Vedanta and his approach to teaching. One of the most significant events in his life was his meeting with his guru, Govinda Bhagavatpada. Under his guidance, Shankaracharya delved deeper into the nuances of Advaita Vedanta, attaining a profound realization of his true nature. This transformative experience ignited within him a fervent desire to share this liberating wisdom with the world. Shankaracharya's life was tragically cut short at the young age of 32. However, in his brief but impactful life, he left an indelible mark on the spiritual landscape of India. His commentaries on the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, and the Bhagavad Gita became authoritative texts for Advaita Vedanta, and his hymns and poems continue to inspire devotion and contemplation. Section 9. A Legacy of Enlightenment. Adi Shankaracharya's influence on Hindu philosophy is immeasurable. He revitalized Hinduism during a time of intellectual and spiritual ferment, establishing Advaita Vedanta as a dominant school of thought. His commentaries on the foundational scriptures of Vedanta provided a clear and comprehensive exposition of this profound philosophy, making it accessible to generations of scholars and seekers. His establishment of the four mathas ensured the preservation and propagation of Advaita Vedanta across the Indian subcontinent, fostering a sense of unity and shared identity among Hindus. His hymns and poems, imbued with devotional fervor and philosophical depth, transcended sectarian boundaries, emphasizing the underlying unity of all forms of divinity. Shankaracharya's legacy extends far beyond the realm of Hinduism. His teachings on the nature of reality, the self, and the path to liberation have resonated with thinkers and spiritual seekers across cultures and traditions. His emphasis on self-inquiry, contemplation, and the realization of our inherent divinity continues to inspire individuals on their spiritual journeys. In a world often fragmented by differences, Shankaracharya's message of unity and oneness holds profound relevance. His life and teachings serve as a timeless reminder that beneath the surface of our apparent diversity lies a profound interconnectedness, a shared ground of being that unites us all.